there is a sort of flicker of intent starting. I want to, but I don't know how to. For some of them, you have to give them a reason why to also. And you have to talk to them why they need to get where they need to get. So for some people, you have to get them to understand a reason. Again, it is not you giving them a reason, but you enabling them to find a reason. So again, I think two components that are vital in yoga and yoga therapy. Two very important components. One, a listening ear. Please note I said a listening ear, not a hearing ear. All ears hear, few listen. Okay? Because the physiological process of sound hitting our eardrum, going and vibrating all of those ossicles and being carried to your brain, this is going to happen to all of us until we have a pathology there. And even then it's going to be maybe diminished, but it's still going to be there at some level. But when we say listening, we mean that we are paying attention. We mean that there is a conscious element coming into it. And that is why many hear, few listen. Like they said, few are chosen, that you play that around a bit. So the first and foremost quality that we need, if we are to help people regain the health, maintain it, sustain it, is we need to be able to listen to the other person. And this is where again modern medicine has lost track because of all the paper we have to fill up and the forms that have to be typed into the computers. Of half an hour that is given to a patient, you only listen, you meet them for 10 minutes. And 20 minutes, I believe, is for filling up the forms. And in India, this is now coming. In our hospital, in the last 6 months, with all the new accreditation policies, we have now 5 new forms for each patient we have to fill up. Just in the last 6 months. So naturally, this is going to percolate down the line, and the more forms you have to fill up, the less time you have to listen. If you don't listen, where do you start? The second quality is a heart that has empathy. People talk about compassion, people talk about sympathy. I prefer the word empathy. Because empathy is the ability to feel the other person's problem as they feel it and not as you feel it. But this is a very dangerous place to be. Very dangerous place to be, and empathy can be hurtful if you are not careful. So again, you have to make sure your energy levels are strong enough. And again, that is why, again, a gap within you enables you to have empathy, but with objectivity. Now, it's sort of a close to being an oxymoron. Objective empathy. It's close to being an oxymoron, but yoga says it's possible. It is possible. And empathetic heart, and a listening ear. You want to add a third to it? Compassionate hug. A hug that says, we can do it together. Three tools. And that is one guarantee I give every patient who walks into our clinic, is that both my colleague, very beautiful colleague, Meena, or I will definitely give them a nice listening. We'll definitely have empathy, and more often than not, depending on the social and other conditioning, they will get a hug. Either a physical and mental, emotional, or a spiritual hug, and depending on cultural barriers that are often there. What does this mean? It means that if you want to help somebody, you have to be willing to listen to them. You have to be able to feel as they are feeling. Be willing to hold the hand and say, let us make this journey together. It is not saying, here are the tools, you do it, which has become modern yoga therapy. Where modern yoga therapy has become what I call yogopathy. It's one of my favorite phrases. I haven't yet trademarked it, but maybe I should. Yogopathy is where we are doing the same thing that allopathy is doing. It's just instead of giving you one of our tablets or injections, we prescribe an asana, a pranayama, a relaxation technique. And we, make it sound like yoga. And we are doing that. We are managing and suppressing symptoms rather than looking at the cause, rather than trying to find a solution. We are just pushing all the problems under the mat until the mat becomes a flying carpet. And then we say we don't know what to do. Are you strong enough to take the person along? Now, if you want to be strong enough, you have to first make sure that your sadhana, your own practice is strong. You should be living these concepts if they are going to work. Just knowing the concept does no good. I know how to fly an airplane. Yeah, I read a book. Does it mean I can fly an airplane? No. Never, never, never. I know how to cook because I read a recipe book. I don't even know how to put on the gas. But I read the book. Watch out. Watch out. There are a lot of these people in this field today. I don't want to get into yoga politics because there's a lot of that. And as I recently said, politics is dirty, yoga politics is even more. And I'm facing the heat in India with a lot of yoga politics coming up. We need to live the concept. The concepts need to come alive in us. We actually become the therapy. Can you imagine that? We actually become the therapy. You don't give therapy. You don't do therapy, you actually become the therapy. As I said, yoga is not something you do. Yoga is something you become. You become yoga. It's not one of those psychological, psychiatric conditions, okay? It's quite normal, okay? You actually become yoga. That is when it becomes yoga chikitsa. Because you have not only empowered yourself, you are able to empower another individual to be the best they can be. Physically, mentally, emotionally, socially, spiritually. That means you first have to empower yourself. All of us travel on airplanes. We have stopped watching those safety videos, right? What do they say? When the air pressure goes down and the mask comes down, what do they tell you to do? First put on yours and then try to help others. Am I wrong? Am I right?
No, it's correct.
Sensible advice. Somebody is drowning, you want to save them. Do you know how to swim? We had that in our swimming pool in the ashram. As a kid, I remember. One of the kids drowning and another kid jumped in to save him who doesn't know how to swim. And then you have to save two instead of one. Swamiji was at the other end of the pool. He let them go in and out a few times and then caught them by the neck. And they, In those days you could spank kids, okay? You could raise the kundalini, okay? You just have to reframe your terminology. Say, help me raise the kundalini. Stop. Legal loopholes, spiritual legal loopholes. You want some guidance? Yeah, available online. I was merely helping raise the kundalini. Well, both those, one of those kids is still teaching for us. He's been with us 40 years now. We often talk about it, Gajanand. You know Gajanand, right? He was one of those. I think he was the one who was going in first and then the other guy jumped in. If you're going to help somebody, you have to be strong. And that is why it is our responsibility to be in the best physical, mental, emotional, spiritual condition we can be before we even try to help somebody. But we are so obsessed with, I'm going to help people. Yeah. If you're going to help them, how are you going to help them? If you yourself need help. And that is why Swadharma says, first take responsibility for yourself. That is the highest responsibility, Bhagavad Gita. Swadharma is the highest responsibility. Dharma is responsibility. You have to first be responsible for yourself. So, how can you be responsible for yourself? By disassociating from your problems. Now, how do you do that practically? Well, it's very simple. Everybody stand up. I'm going to show you how you actually dissociate from your problems. Yeah, okay, yeah, we all here. You all look good. Fine. Now what we do is that we make sure you all know which is right and left, okay? Because this is very important. I've been in medical conferences where doctors, when they say, put up your right hand, put up the left hand, I wonder what type of surgeries they do on right and left brain, okay? Right and left kidneys, and dentists, which tooth? Well, watch out. Right hand, and let's shake it a bit. Right. Ah, we have a left hand. You're doing it what to do? Oh. Now we have a left hand. That's just to give humor to the... Now both hands. Now no confusion, right? This makes it easy. Huh? Beautiful. And now we need to know the difference between up and down, right? So let's go up. Let's go down. Let's go up. And let's go down. Come back to the center. Beautiful. Now you know up, down, you know right and left, and you know center. Beautiful. Okay? Educated. Right. Now, let's start moving to our right, and I am going to move to my right and not left because I trust your intelligence. Okay? I'm not going to do this mirror image thing, and don't get me going on that because I'll take another 1 hour. So I'm going to my right and I want you to go to your right. Okay? To your right, to your right, to your right. Beautiful, beautiful. See, I can trust your intelligence. Come back to the center. And now to your left. Beautiful. Back to the center. Now again up, down, right, left. Up, down, right, left. And now in the center, I want you to just shake as fast as possible. Let those fingers just vibrate at the speed of light. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. Now, catch hold of your fist. Think of all the problems you have. Okay? Lay them all. Just think of one. The biggest one. Right now, Dr. Ananda standing in front of you is the biggest problem. Okay, fine? Because he is not letting you escape. Fine. Catch hold of that problem as tight as possible. Don't let it escape. We don't want it running away, okay? Catch hold of it. Take in a deep breath. And now, with all your force, throw it out. Very simple, right? But it's still stuck there. I see it on your fingers. So again. If your problems are stuck on your fingertips, just shake them, loosen them up. Now we'll make this a bit more freestyle, okay? No videos, please. My reputation will be in tatters. Well, maybe I'll get more students with this. That's a nice yoga class. We get to shake and... Well, okay, now fast. Shake. Loosen it all up. Any of those tensions, any of those troubles, think of all those things that bog you down. Everything that you don't like either about yourself, about where you are, anything, whatever it is. Catch hold. A deep breath, power it with a breath, and throw it out. Just stand now. Feet close to each other, not touching but just close to each other, hands by the side. Standing erect, eyes closed, breathing out, just breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Taking a deep breath, breathing out. Beautiful. You see how relaxed you feel after you've thrown things out? And all you have to do is think of whatever your problem is and say, I don't want you, get out. This is where your intent is becoming a physical gesture. A gesture is a mudra. Now the moment I say mudras, you say, oh, Chin Mudra, Chinmaya Mudra, Brahma Mudra, Kechari Mudra. A gesture is a mudra. You are gesturing to yourself, you are gesturing to the universe, I don't want this. And you are throwing it out. Now I wish it could happen if you just throw it out once. It doesn't happen because problems are like that. They keep on clawing their way back like the villains in movies. The hero turns around thinking he's dead and he always it's the typical story. So there are always going to be these, it's like the drug-resistant organisms that are coming today. So it's going to try its best to come back. And when you keep on repeating, whenever a negativity comes into you, whenever you find yourself experiencing a thought, an emotion, a feeling that you know is not you, you know this is absolute green, pure green jealousy, okay? You know that. Why hold it on? Say, get out. You can even do it by kicking. Just take in a breath and go, try it out. Then the other leg. Another way. This is also a gesture. Get away. I don't want you. Get away. Go away. I don't want you. And when you mentally focus on that and say, get away, you are sending a signal that you don't want it. There is a natural disassociation, a gap developing. A conscious gap. Where does the gap come from? Conscious part of us. Not the animal brain, not the mammalian, not the reptilian old brain. It's the conscious human neocortex. And especially this forebrain area. That is the area that is saying, I don't want it. This is not me. You have those days where you say, this is not me, but why am I reacting like this? Why am I saying this? This is not me. You know it, but you are still saying it, okay? And then, you have to bear the repercussions of what you said when you were not you. That's the problem, you cannot blame somebody else for it. I can always blame my clones, okay? Or as one of the students yesterday said, I looked and sounded like his stepfather. So I can maybe find that guy and blame him in the future. Or, I have an uncle in the USA who looks just like me, or rather I look just like him. So, I can always blame my uncle on it or somebody. It's a bit difficult. So, throw it out. Whenever the negativity, and don't wait for it to become established. See, if you have a weed in your garden, what do? Pluck it out at the earliest. You don't wait for it to become a tree and then struggle with it. So when the first negativity comes, when this first dukkha is coming, catch it by its neck, crumple it up and throw it up. Why do we throw it up? Because this symbol of throwing it up is a gesture that you are dissipating it into the universe. Now imagine you had a cup full of poison. Okay? If you were to drink it, you would die. 1 cup of poison, well, all of us could die. We don't want to do it, so we don't drink it. Very simple. But now if I take that poison and I put it into the ocean, it's not going to kill anybody. What has happened? It has got dissipated, it's got diluted. And you know what diluted poison is? Medicine. And concentrated medicine? Poison. So be careful of too much medicine. That's why it becomes poison. You are throwing your problem up into the universe, dissipating it, dissolving it, diluting it. It's again expanding your perspective. Rather than throwing it at somebody else. Here's my problem, I'll throw it at you. Which is what we do in day-to-day life. Here's my problem, now you catch it. Passing the hot potato. You have the problem. Now, the last thing we are going to do, and I hope nobody minds if we make noise in here.
No.
Oh, perfect. Thank you. Because we are going to make noise.
Just us.
I don't want to suddenly find these military helicopters out here, with blazing lights. And I've seen too many movies, you can see that. Especially of the kind my mother would not approve of. Don't tell her, okay? I have been meditating on my flights, okay? That's it. Not watching Spectre and Mission Impossible. Revenant, yes. I wanted to acclimatize to Canada, so I watched that. What was the last one, that crazy one? Yeah. What was that? Four superheroes. Fantastic Four. Yeah. He was listening last night to my speech. That's right. Fine. Now, if you are going to help somebody else, first of all, you have to throw away your problem so that you are not having that. You can help them throw it out. This is one of the most popular things we use. And I tell you, the amount of psychological well-being it can give you. Because we just keep on grasping. I often, in the 6-month course, I talk about this grasping reflex, that when a baby is born, the first thing the pediatrician does is comes and puts the little finger in the baby's palm and sees whether it grasps. And the moment it grasps, it said, this will be a good grasper. A featherless biped to called human. You can grasp, mine, me, for me, only me. See, that is why the moment you start to let go, the moment you start to give, this is the gesture of giving, this is a gesture of let going. And that is why you throw like this. What you are doing is you are going against that tendency to hold on. That again, the dukkha samyoga. This is the practical application of Bhagavad Gita teaching dukkha samyoga. Now, along with that, you have to make sure you are strong. Now, all of our energy comes from our solar plexus. This is the energy center. This is the sun center. And we are solar beings, whether we like it or not. And that is why the planet on which we live and other planets goes round and round and round that sun. And we have something called a solar plexus, the sun center here. And the sound for the center here is ha. Okay? It's like, if you look at Hatha Yoga, it is ha and ta. The ha is the sun, the ta is the moon. So ha refers to the sun center. So I just want you to place your palms over your upper abdominal region. It's between your navel and this episternum, this lower part of your middle chest. And we want to make this sound. We are going to breathe in and make this sound. Now this sound has to come from the belly. This is where sound should be coming from. All sound should originate here. This is the origin of the sound. No, it's not up here. Ha, ha, ha. That sounds more like a goose. That's more like. It has to be a sound from down here. It must go ha. Okay, you get that sound? It's down ha. Okay, so take in a deep breath and out ha. I made more noise than all of you. No, come on, I'm supposed to be jet lagged, not you. Breathe in, out, ha! That's a bit better. Ha! Ha! You know what you end up doing is you have a nice laughter. That's why they say laughter is the
Best
medicine. Right? Because this center gets activated. And this is where we should be. We should be in tune with the cosmos. We should be in tune with this beautiful solar energy that we are. And this is a practice that does it. And this empowers us. This gives us that fire in the belly. This gives us that strength to go and help others. Please sit down. I have gone a bit over the time allotted, but considering that you took time coming in after your snacks, I think I can absorb myself of that. No, I have to take responsibility for letting you do it. Before we end, any questions? I'm going to be around for next few days in Montreal, so or close to Montreal. I don't know where I'm being kidnapped, but wherever that is. So if you have questions, it's there, and I'm always there on the other end of a computer in some part of the world. And I say that 3 days, 72 hours is usually the maximum time it takes to get an email back from me. And if you're on Facebook, usually it's much shorter.
It's true.
And often it's instantaneous. People wonder that whether I'm typing the answer before they have typed the question. So that is there, but in case...
Sorry.
Yeah? No,
They look so beautiful, I had to.
Any questions that you would like to have short answers? Yes, please.
I'm from Java, and our name is Sama.
Yeah.
Suka, Duka is in our language.
Yes.
This is Sama, Duka, and Sama, Duka
Yeah.
is from Sanskrit.
Yes, yes. Beautiful. Actually, the Indonesians and Indians share a lot of commonalities. There are a lot of commonalities in many of the way the divine is depicted. There is a lot of similarities in the language, and definitely this whole area was culturally very similar. And so the words like Sukha, Dukkha, and Sama, they would be, yes. It's actually very interesting because we have about 45 official languages in India, and it's a bit difficult to know all of them. But if you're lucky, we had a prime minister who knew I think 17.
Wow.
So he was quite a learned scholar, but that's asking a lot. I struggle with 3, so not too bad. Okay. Plus my broken English, so I could add 4 languages if I take it that way. Most of the Indian languages, many of these words have the commonality. And it's very tough to know where they really came from, because each linguistic group would love theirs to be the source. Yes. So there's always a lot of fanaticism coming into it. But there's a very beautiful commonality between these different languages and words, which again to me just reiterates the universality of these concepts. When I find that the word manas, which means mind, And the person who has a mind is called a manav or a manushya. And then I find the word human having man, which again sounds like manas or man in Hindi. I say there is something coming someplace. Whether it came from Greek, Latin, Sanskrit, it doesn't matter, but something resonates. Because the concept in Sanskrit is you do not label anything, but the word is that which is the vibratory essence of what exists. So a tree is called a tree in Sanskrit. No, it's not called a tree in Sanskrit, it's called vriksha, but I'm just using the example. A tree is called a tree because the sound tree is the vibratory essence of what a tree is. It's not a label. And so that is why when you use these terms like sama or dukkha or sukha, all these terms, what you're actually doing is you are invoking that vibration. And by doing so, you evoke in you that quality. So it's a very beautiful interplay between what we do and what happens. So the intent you put out is the invocation part, and what happens in you is the evocation part. So it's a very beautiful concept which makes you even be more careful of what you say.
I have a commentary about that, if
Yes.
you don't mind.
Yes,
Do you
please.
speak French?
I don't. People don't believe I come from Pondicherry because Pondicherry is, we are supposed to know French. The second thing is you are supposed to get drunk.
But I was
And I
saying
don't
that,
do both.
I was saying that because you know the word pain, when you were repeating pain, pain,
Yes.
pain?
Uh,
You know how everything is relative? I
Yes.
was thinking pain is bread in French.
wow. That's interesting.
So
That's
it
very interesting.
feels different.
It's very interesting because this is one of the struggles we have when we deal with patients who have different languages. And as I said, we have 45 official languages and many other dialects in India. So, how do you get the concept to them and how do you phrase it? It's actually a challenge at times. And I have had people who, actually we have a patient from Bangladesh right now. And trying to communicate with her has been a big difficulty. She had tried to commit suicide and drank an acid and burnt her food pipe. So my head of surgery, who's been my surgery teacher, has repaired it. And because he is the dean for our alternative systems, he has brought in the yoga and music therapy to help her heal. And she's enjoying it. But it's a bit of a struggle because you have to communicate with hand gestures and thought, but it's happening. It's happening. So it's happening. So
Even though it works at the hospital, the Jewish hospital here,
yes,
they introduced a new way for patients that come. It's the intercultural
yeah.
side.
Mm.
You come, you speak the same language, but
Yes.
you might not necessarily mean the same thing. So they have what they call mediator. So it's people who come and you can talk to them in your own language and they will
Yes.
translate the meaning
of it.
of which is very important for the
Very
doctors because they're
Very
trying to
much.
have a more holistic view.
Yes.
Most of the
Yes.
Chinese patients who
Yes.
also have their Chinese medicine.
Yes.
So it's and they're doing that now with Indian and Sri Lankan
Yes.
studies
Mm.
where they speak English but they might not speak the
Yes.
same.
Yeah.
Comment on dit? Ouais, c'est ça. Mais non, je parle la même langue mais pas le même langage.
Yes.
Yeah. The
You know, it's
intent
the
is not getting
cultural-
conveyed.
Yeah, the cultural meaning is not there.
It's
So and
actually
it started like that.
in the big hospital in Pondicherry, we have people who come from all over India, and many of them don't speak the local language, which is Tamil. And so the hospital authorities ended up with a book that has about 400 words. And so as a doctor, you learn it. This is, when I studied, I had to do the same thing. And it was quite a difficult thing to communicate with the patient using, one of these translator books. And so when I came back to this hospital and I could speak in their language, suddenly, for me it was like the dam burst open. And I was so overjoyed, my fellow interns couldn't understand why I was spending so much time with the patient. And I said, finally, I can know what the problem really is, instead of just saying, where does it pain? Does it pain? How long does it pain? And the peak of this experience was when a doctor took this dictionary, and the dictionary basically translates what is your problem into Tamil. And so he kept on asking the patient, what's your problem, what's your problem? And we used the word kashtam. So he said, Yenna kashtam, what is your problem? And the patient answered in Tamil, my problem is money problem. Because, he got tired of this guy, asking, what's your problem? He said, my problem is money problem. Well, that's the intern cannot solve that. Yeah.
I have another question. Oh,
Yes.
go ahead.
Yeah, please. Let's hear it. Yes. Yes,
I have a
please.
question about when you began talking. You spoke of medicine's knowledge of health
Yes.
is like a pin drop.
Yes.
I see modern medicine, certainly in this part of the world, is very much connected to a business.
Yeah.
Even though we pay taxes for it here,
Yeah.
it's still a business.
It is.
Do you think, are you hopeful that there will be a shift at some point where people focus a little bit more energy into finding the health solutions and the health pursuits versus the treat you because you're sick?
You see, what happened is that at one time we had the art of medicine. And that art of medicine was because we had heart. So we had the heart, and so there was art of medicine. Then we started to focus on the science of medicine. And then now the whole focus has shifted to the business of medicine. And young doctors coming into our medical school, I often talk to them and I ask them, why do you want to become a doctor? And it's a pity that very few are there to actually help others. Most of them say, well, I can earn a lot of money. I can go abroad. I can go to the USA and earn a lot of money. It's again this escape. The few who say we want to help others at the first year of medical school, by the time they get through the third and fourth year, lose track of that and again start to see how they can make money. So what has happened is that people choosing medicine are choosing medicine because of the opportunity for either status symbol or the money making, rather than a desire to help others. So if people choose a career based on that, no matter of syllabus, no matter of anything is going to change it. So I believe that there has to be a shift of focus even at society level. Because for me, the place that most emphasis should be given is in schools, where the best of the mind should be teaching the young people what life is about, what are the priorities of life. It has to start right there, so that the kids, when they come to medical school, have the priorities right, take on the science of medicine, and then maintain the art. So I don't think changing the Medicare system or changing the medical schooling, even we are now told that we should bring value education into medical education. So they say, okay, let us have 30 hours of value education spread over 5 years. And I had an email just before I came from the vice principal of our medical school saying, how do you people in yoga want to contribute? I said, okay, we will contribute this many hours over the period. But if the kid has come into the medical school with the idea, I'm going to make money, no matter of me going and talking about being a good human being is going to actually do much good. Is again fighting fire with, maybe this much water. So I don't think the medical system itself is going to change. Because the problem is the medical system at present is driven by profit. The whole pharmaceutical research is driven by profit. And now if you have people buying shares in your company, you cannot say that I saved 10,000 people this year, but I have this much loss. Your shareholders are not going to accept that. So then, are we looking for a cure is a big question I have, because if you cure conditions, you don't make money on
You
them.
can't make the money.
So I believe that the ancient system that the Chinese had, I don't know if they still have it, where the doctors got paid as long as the people were healthy. I think if system shifts to that, which is like, again,
But that's it, they make
changing
it.
the Atlantic and the Pacific basically. It is something like that would have to be there, where the hospitals get the money when the people are healthy, rather than when they are sick. And I don't see that happening. I don't see that happening in the near future. Now, as a doctor, then what can I do? Well, the young doctors who sort of rally around me, those who feel that I'm not mad, those young people who sort of feel I'm a role model for them, at least for those young doctors, I have a small group, maybe a dozen or so, who want to serve people. And I say, when you serve people, you're automatically going to get enough patients, you're going to get enough money, you're going to still get your house. You don't have to plan for the house part, it will happen. But if you plan for the house, what happens is you end up killing more people than helping them. So I think all I can do at my level is influence the young people in my vicinity. Sort of put my word out there, put my thought out there, be a living example of what I feel is the way forward. And I think try to retain the heart of medicine. I say the business will take care of itself. In fact, I don't know if that's on YouTube or not, but one of my talks to these 250 new medical students was, try to get the art and science of medicine. The business part of it will come on its own. Don't focus on that. That will happen. You will get it. And our Indian culture says, follow your dharma. Do your responsibility. The artha karma will come on its own. The material needs and your emotional needs will be fulfilled on their own if you follow your responsibility. The good people can win. Yes.
I'm privileged to say that my general practitioner always prescribes yoga every year.
Beautiful.
Have you started it yet?
That's
And not yet, no. And he doesn't prescribe medication for nothing. I'm very happy.
I'm very heartened to hear that, because these are the type of role models that I wish the young doctors can have. And in our own university, the Vice Chancellor is one of those type of people. Our Dean is a person like that. So, the problem is, every time our Vice Chancellor wants to take a class, his Department of Medicine finds an excuse not to give him a class. So, when he told me that recently, I'm like, shouldn't they be making maximum use of such people to show these living examples? And it's sort of, he said every time he wants to do a round, they make sure that all the patients have been discharged. Now, if that happens to the Vice Chancellor of my university, then what chance do other people have? So whenever I find these people, I have a pediatrician like that, who I've seen on so many occasions prescribe the minimum required. In fact, I think the best doctor is the one who does the least.
Yeah.
But in these days of malpractice, litigation, you have to be seen to be doing the most so that you are safe from litigation. And an Indian doctor in the UK was put in jail for 7 years for not ordering a certain test on somebody. And I can understand, as an Indian, I can understand his thinking that why do an unnecessary test. But later on, they turned it around saying, if you had done that, you would have diagnosed it, blah, 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 and this would have happened, and he ended up in jail for, I think, 7 years or something. So, what happens is, the moment this litigation, the moment the business, it's such a vicious spiral that if I say I'm not going to do it, I run the risk. And one has to be very courageous, one has to be willing to say that, okay, fine, if you kick me out of my profession, well and good, no problem. And
This
we have
particular
those.
doctor doesn't even have, you go in for your appointment,
Mm.
I could be there 10 minutes before, and
Yes.
I can come out at the time, because
Yes.
he's right on time, he will not
Yeah.
overlap, he
Beautiful.
respects the stress of the day and
Yes.
everything. He analyzes something, he says there's no subways, but then people have to walk, maybe they need the exercise. That's
Yeah.
his philosophy, I just love it.
Beautiful. Next time I must meet him. Yes.
Yeah,
Question.
I have a question. Well, you talked about medicine, but I see yoga, at least in the Western world, used as a business a lot,
Yes.
and I find it very disturbing. It's almost became pathological.
Yes.
Like anybody can teach yoga now, and
Yes.
that's what's happening.
Yes.
And people are being hurt by
Yes.
that too.
Yes.
Could you talk a bit about that?
Well, from where I come, one has to first embody the teachings before they can teach. And it's not a matter of 200 hours, 500 hours, or even 5,000 hours. It's a matter of each individual's growth, each individual's ability to tune themselves. Now, some can tune it in 200 hours. I don't dispute that. So some have that. But it doesn't mean everybody with 200 hours can tune in. And again, some even after 5,000 may not be able to do it. So I know people who have 40 years of experience, but still are not ready to teach. And I know people who have 4 months of experience and are ready to teach. So again, it's very difficult because we want to have this structure. And I'm actually having nightmares. I started off the other day, and I don't want to get into it because it's again the yoga politics of India, where I'm on all these government committees, and I'm getting to see the true faces of these leaders of yoga who are not yogic at all. They are pure businessmen. And it's actually very disheartening to see that these are the faces of yoga in India. For me, the home of yoga. And these are the faces, and they're just pure businessmen. I call them spiritual MBAs. And that they're just selling yoga. You know, some people sell potatoes. These guys are selling yoga, that's all. They're not. At the same time, where does one draw the line? And this line is a very thin line because the more popular yoga has become, more and more people say, okay, that's a good job opportunity. And the same thing that, why do people become doctors? Why do people become yoga teachers? Now initially, if you looked at it even 50 years ago, especially in the West, people who came to yoga were people who were either searching for themselves or who were searching for an answer to life or something. Then they learned it, and then they came back, they said, okay, let me teach. So there was more of that. Very few people took the trouble of going all the way to India, finding a yoga teacher. In those days it was difficult. You didn't have, yoga.com, and you didn't have, Wikipedia, and you didn't have, all those guides.
Dr.Ananda in Montreal.
Yes, absolutely. You didn't have all my Yahoo advertisements. You didn't have that. So, it wasn't easy. And so after doing that, when you came back, you started sharing, and then sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't work. And most of our teachers actually go back and they take up some other job, and side by side they maybe teach a bit of yoga. This is actually what we found. That very few of them actually went back to become full-fledged yoga teachers. Because they said, I would like to retain the love for yoga. But what has happened in the especially the last 4 decades, it's been very rapid, is this has turned, and the more popular it became, and once you had Madonna and others practicing yoga, and you had, anyway, it's okay. I'm not going to get into how this happened, but it suddenly became fashionable. It suddenly became profession. It suddenly became, the in thing.
Trendy.
The trendy thing, And so what happened is suddenly people jumped in, but what was the intent? The power of intent was focused on something else. And no matter the amount of regulation, because now in India we are starting this regulation, and they want to regulate centers, they want to regulate individuals, and The people who are regulating it in the first place are businessmen. So, what are they going to regulate? And I already got an offer from a company who said, for this much of a fee, we'll help you become an accredited blah 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 school. And I'm like, I don't want to be. Because why should I pay this professional group to come and just as you get all your paperwork, they'll do all my paperwork so that I can pass this accreditation. And and the thing is that we have been doing it. We have been working on it. So the government of India is also struggling because we say it's mushrooming. We say there are dangers, and this controversy that came up when the book came out by William Bard, in which my own father is quoted as saying, yoga is as safe as mother's milk. And I was sent an email by New York Times, that's how I knew about it, saying, this is an article coming up and your father is quoted as saying this, is it his quote? They were confirming it before publishing. And I said, yes, it is his quote, but later he added, even mother's milk is not safe anymore. But they left that out of the article. It didn't serve their purpose. So, they kept the first part, yoga is as safe as mother's milk, yes. But then, that second part. So, it's very difficult in India. We are again struggling. It's even worse in India. Because what happens is every Indian thinks they're already a yogi. So, it's already a big problem. And so, all they have to do is, wear orange or, put on something. And, most of them are quite flexible. Indians are naturally flexible. So, they can easily get into a few of the asanas required. And so, pick up a few, scriptural terms and, presto, the new gurus arrived on the scene. So we have it even worse actually, because we have absolutely no regulation for it. And the dangers of it are big. Again, it cannot be an external regulation will never work on it. Because the same thing has happened the moment you try to regulate morals and ethics from externally, it will never, it has to come from internal. So I think the simplest way is to make yoga less profitable, which is not going to happen, because it's already, people are talking about whether it can become $1 billion and $1 trillion, market. And whenever I read that, in fact, my mother, when we looked at one of the recent yoga journals, not recent, this has actually been a few years, but at that time it was the recent issue. She said, if I ever go back to the USA, and she won't, she said, I would never, ever tell anybody that I teach yoga.
Really?
That's actually what she said. She said, I would not tell anybody I teach yoga. She said that is the condition. So you can imagine how
She's
far
distancing herself.
how far she has distanced from that. And in fact, most of the time when I travel, if people say, what do you do? I just say I'm a medical doctor. This is actually what I do. I don't even use the word yoga because the conversation goes down such abysmal level of talk. And that I say the simplest thing is medical doctor, and maximum which will happen at immigration in India is a free consultation. For his diabetes, he wanted to know if his blood sugar was fine. So he gave him a consultation at Indian immigration. So that's the most of that happened. And in fact, as I told a friend of mine today, that I'm trying to find a new title for myself. And it may be something like, I said, I don't like, life coach is already taken. But can we say something, wellness guide, or I don't know, find something else, because this word yoga is starting to become another 4-letter bad word. And I'm afraid of that. So I'm a person who feels for yoga. At times I take the abuse of yoga a bit too personally, and then I say, yoga has survived very, very long time. So it will survive this challenge too. But at the same time, as a person who feels for it, I cannot but be worried about it. And at least in some of our councils for yoga, I try to put this up. And because of that, the next council, they kick me out so that I am not there, because I become the troublemaker who points out that we need to first fulfill our morals and ethics before imposing it on others. We have to follow the practice before we ask others to practice it. We have to live it if we want others to live it. And people just don't want to do that. They want to say, I have 1,000 students, I have 10,000 students, I have 35 ashrams. This is what they want, and that's why you have guru ratings on the net.
Oh my gosh.
The person who put it up got very irritated that I wrote an article about that. They were like, how dare you do that? I become the, what do you call that, where they throw?
Target.
Target, yeah.
But I share your apprehension about it. And all I can say is that if each one of us takes responsibility for where we are and what we do, I think that's more than what we can do. That's more than what we can do. Yes?
My question, what do you see the young generation from India? How many are they
The young generation in India thinks they are already Americans. And it's a major issue because the access to the internet, the access to, we got to see Jungle Book before you guys to get to see it, okay? So, we get to see your movies even before you get to see it, okay? So, you can imagine where the influence has started to come in. And so the way they talk, the attitudes, I wish people in the East would imbibe the best of the West, and that the people in the West would imbibe the best of the East. But human beings don't do that. We always go for the lowest common side, and so they see, they sort of have caught up on this sense of, I am the most important person, and why should I listen to anybody? And it's my life. And by the time they come around to the senses, it's usually too late. Now, we have been working with young kids from the age of 5, and what I can say is that at least 50,000 kids in the last 40, 50 years have gone through our teaching, learning yoga, music, dance. They may not be yogis. Now, when I use the word yogi, it doesn't mean one who carries a yoga mat, okay? which is, again, one reason I don't travel with a yoga mat. I'm, Clark Kent. Okay? No yoga mat. When I mean a yogi, I mean one who embodies yoga. Not just does yoga, but is yoga. So they may not be yogis, they may not be great dancers, they may not be great musicians, great performers. But one thing I know is that they are decent human beings. And every one of those kids who has gone through our institution, I will say, is a decent human being, or at least tries to be a decent human being. And as these kids are going into the professional life, and now we are having second generation and third generation manifest, I see that percolating, that there is still hope. So I do have hope for the young Indian generation, that these kids, I see them responsible, I see them following up on what they say they will do. I see them choosing the right over the pleasant, the good over the pleasant. I do see some of them. But the problem is, it's again like 1 in a million. So, what they have to combat is at times so difficult that I wonder whether I've spoiled them for the modern world at times. And I say, maybe I've actually not been a blessing but a curse in their life when it comes to the modern world. But then they keep on reassuring me that it's not a curse, it's actually a blessing. And it's nice to see young doctors who have that, young business people who have that. A student of mine who hasn't talked to me for 5 years now, came for my birthday the other day and started crying. I don't know why I make everybody cry, but I have this tendency. And he was like, every day I think of you, and every day in my work I'm doing this and I'm making this profit and hundreds of people are working under me today. And of this profit which I got, I kept 10% and 90% of it I've shared amongst my employees. And this is what I'm doing for society and this is how I'm sharing it. It was just beautiful to hear a young person and he said, everything I say, everything I do is what I learned from you. And so, there's a businessman who is successful in business and still retaining humaneness. Young doctors who are maintaining it, young engineers who are maintaining it. So I think that there are a handful. And just to get back to again the Bhagavad Gita, I'm making up for not mentioning it yesterday. Lee is going to give his class an earful of this. He said, what you got me into now? Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita tells Arjuna, he says, out of 1,000 people who exist, one wants to come to me. Okay? So 1 out of 1,000 wants to come to me. And he said, out of 1,000 who want to come to me, 1 gets to me. So that's 1 in a million. So Krishna's success rate is 1 in a million. So I say, well, I'm at least better than that. Maybe 1 in 10,000, maybe 1 in 100,000. So I think I can feel a sense of joy in these young people. And yes.
One thing I appreciate with yoga, I discovered that 3 years ago. The healthcare is here, it's made sport and movement, etc. And the yoga slow the movement, take a time to stop all this stuff.
Yes.
And this equilibrium between speed and stop,
Yes.
that would be the really nice way to be in health.
Yes.
And maybe that's why it's so interesting in America, because we are here always in speed. But with some teacher here, we take an hour for open the breath and stop all the stuff and get it clean. And it's interesting.
It's a very beautiful point because speed is always fraught with danger. And the faster you drive, the more the danger. And the faster you think, the more the danger. The faster you live, the more the danger. So yoga says start to slow things down. Slow your breath down, slow your body down. Slow your thought down until it stops. No thought, no breath, no you. And that's the state of yoga. It's a very beautiful concept, and I thank you for bringing that out, because I think this emphasis on speed, this emphasis on push breaks us. So I think it's important to, we only heal when we relax. We don't heal when we are stressed, when we are tense. So when we slow things down, there's more of a chance to relax. And in that relaxation, it is parasympathetic. Stress is sympathetic. So in parasympathetic balance, at that point, healing can occur. And that is why the slower we speak, the slower we think, the slower we breathe, the more we be, rather than the more we do. And ultimately, that one point where there's no breath, it's called Kevala Kumbhaka. That is the peak of pranayama, Kevala Kumbhaka. There's no breath anymore. Chitta Vritti Nirodha, there's no more thought. Prana Vritti Nirodha, they talk about no more energy. It's all just stopped. And of course, that point where you as that individual drop merge into the ocean. That drop doesn't exist anymore. It's the ocean now. It's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful state. We have gone way beyond the beyond. Again, an Indian tendency. We say there's a beyond, and then there's a beyond beyond, and then there's a beyond beyond beyond.
Well, I think you have taken us beyond the beyond in the most positive way. And on behalf of everybody, I'd like to thank you. It's a real blessing to have your physical form with us in this
You can
studio.
see me? I thought I was invisible.
But really, that's been my problem. Thank you so much. No, I'm not going to cry.
And thank you everyone for making this wholesomeness manifest.
Yeah. Thank you. Namaste.